Rejoice, everyone. We're back with another Sekhie Reacts to Fate. This week, Alexander Dumas and Edmund Dantes, the Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah. Also known under several other names.
Yeah.
Just a couple more. 3, 4, 5. Couple unnamed. Just casually. One of those things. I've been remiss.
Just gotta crack one open.
Crack open a cold one with the boys.
There's something a lot less cool when the cold one is a Diet Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, well, I don't drink on work nights. That's a lie. I just didn't think to go get a bottle of beer. It was not in my plans for tonight. Alright. So, some of you may be wondering, who is Edmond Dumas?
Edmund Dumas?
Yeah, I realized what I said. I heard it the second that Dumas came out of my mouth instead of Dantes. I heard it.
Go on.
Some of you may be wondering who Alexander Dumas or Edmond Dantes is. Well, let me tell you, one of them is a fictional character and you'll never guess who. It's Dantes, sorry. There's no way to tell them apart if you don't already know about them. The names are both eminently practical. Like, it doesn't even sound like a weird fiction name that someone came up with that, like, no one understands. Like, it, yeah. So, ironically, I know Alexander Dumas from a different book, actually.
I think a lot of younger people will. There's one book that's a little bit more popular amongst younger people, I think, that sticks out for Dumas.
The Three Musketeers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Porthos, Athos, Aramis, and D'Artagnan. I've seen multiple adaptations of The Three Musketeers. I've read The Three Musketeers. It is... Say what you will about Dumas and whether or not he wrote his own books, which we're going to get to in their entirety when we talk a little bit about Maquette. But The Three Musketeers is genuinely one of the funniest books I've ever read. Like, I remember when I first started reading it, I was reading it out loud with my mom, right, when we were traveling, and it had me rolling on the floor laughing. Like, genuinely, absolutely amazingly well written. Super funny. Would recommend to anyone. And keep in mind, in the style of many historical novels, like pre-1900, these were published in a serialized format in smaller chapters and in smaller volumes originally. So while the Count of Monte Cristo book today is like 1,000+ pages this thick, you don't really need to read all of it. It didn't come out for you to read it all in one go like that.
It's like, this is the latest adventure of the Three Musketeers or the Count of Monte Cristo.
Exactly, which is why there's associated stories for the Three Musketeers.
It's much closer to how we read manga than how we read normal novels.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, granted, they're coming out in, like, volumes, but it's serialization. Anyways, so,
Well, even then, we're reading manga in volumes, but if you're now, digitally now manga is being read serialized.
That is true.
We're able to keep up day and date with Japan now.
That is true. So, Alexander Dumas is a French novelist and a playwright. He was born in 1802, living to the ripe old age of 68, before dying in 1870. As was the case with many historical novelists during this time, most of his popular works were published originally as serials, meaning each was made up of multiple different installments that would be published individually over a large amount of time, sometimes several years, sometimes months. Phantom of the Opera was also published as short serials. We discussed this when we did Phantom of the Opera. It was only collected into a book later.
And like Dracula and Frankenstein are two others.
Yep. So his most famous works are, of course, The Count of Monte Cristo, The Three Musketeers, 20 Years After, and The Vicomte of Bragelonne, 10 years later. Although his career does extend to works far beyond these are the most famous. Dumas also founded the Théâtre Historique in Paris, which is a very famous theater building that produced most of his plays and would later be bought by the opera and operated for another couple of years, even though it had suffered some damage during the Revolutionary Wars. Born as Dumas Davy de la Paletterie or Pailleterie? I don't know. I've never seen that.
I was going to say neither of us speak French, but then I remembered, wait, you actually did take French
courses. A year of French, yeah. I would say Pailleterie, but they might be Pailleterie. I genuinely don't know. So he had two older sisters, and his father was Thomas Alexander Dumas. Thomas Alexander, his father, was originally born in the colony of San Domingo, which is now Haiti, and was the mixed-race son of the Marquis Alexander Antoine Davy de la Paletterie, and a woman named Marie Cesette Dumas, who was an African woman of Afro-Caribbean heritage who was enslaved. The documents about her don't clarify whether she was born in San Domingo or Africa, but they do qualify her as a black woman and not a woman of visibly mixed race. As this was during the time when people would track like the types of mixed race and give them all sorts of different names. I think you've probably heard about this like in American history classes, but that's where we get like the terms like mulatto, right? Is like a specific type of mixed race. Not something that we use today, but it was used back then to quantify people into census records. And technically, if you were of visible mixed race, you were of higher status than just a black woman, so... Dumas's grandfather had made her his concubine when he bought her, but in 1775, when he headed back to France to claim the family estates and title of Marquis, he sold her, as well as her two daughters by him and her first daughter by another man, taking only his natural-born son, Thomas Alexander. And then Thomas Alexander, he didn't let him use the family name, de la Paletterie, in like historical records as far as we're aware, and so he took the name Dumas possibly a little bit later in life, but Dumas means of the farm, which might be a reference to the fact that his mother was literally just owned by a farm owner, and so he kind of taken, and later Alexander Dumas would take this name that his father had used as his kind of main name rather than the name that he was given at birth, which I'll cover in a second. Thomas Alexander Dumas did very well for himself in the army. He became a French general. He was the first person of color to become brigadier general, divisional general, and eventually general-in-chief of a French army. He was notable for enabling the opening of the Alpine passes in 1794 during the French Revolutionary Wars and led the Army of the Alps. He became known as the Black Devil, and Napoleon himself nicknamed him the Horatius Cocles of the Tyrol, after a hero who saved the Roman Empire, according to stories. Dumas also participated in the Expedition de l'Egypte from 1798 to 1801. And guess what? A return to something that we haven't done in a long time on a Sekhie Rex is me actually having a relevant book, because I do have the Description de l'Egypte, which is really just... so when Napoleon went to Egypt in 1798, he took an army with him, and alongside the army he took a bunch of like anthropologists, historians, like whatever it was, and he basically just had them document everything they found. So the Description de l'Egypte is literally just thousands of drawings and pictures and records of all of the antiquities that they found while they were in Egypt, and that they cataloged and recorded. And this is actually some of the only remaining records we have of some of the architecture that has since been destroyed and was never like photographed or anything. So it actually does serve a pretty important place sort of like in history. And also this is, when Napoleon invaded Egypt famously, which was not a particularly well-loved thing these days. I'm pretty sure this is also the expedition in which they found the Rosetta Stone, which was then debated over between the British and the French, and then eventually Champollion would translate it. The Frenchman would do it first. So it doesn't include just antiquities, though. There is they even documented flora and fauna from the area. So it was supposed to be like a scientific document, basically.
Now don't get used to her having the book on hand.
No, because unfortunately, I actually do not have a paper copy of any of Dumas's works. We have a digital copy on Nook of the Three Musketeers, but I've actually never read the Count of Monte Cristo in its entirety. I've read parts of it, but I've never actually read the entire book. I intend to, right? But I just haven't yet. It's so long, and I would read it all as one, so it wouldn't take me that long, but it would take me enough time that I just didn't have time for it while I was in college. All right. Where was I? All right. So, Thomas Alexander originally commanded the cavalry forces, but he quarreled with Napoleon Bonaparte, and in 1799 he would leave Egypt and was run aground at the Kingdom of Naples and taken prisoner until 1801. When Alexander Dumas was a young man, he began working for Louis Philippe, the Duke of Orleans, who would later become the Citizen King of France from 1830 to 1848, the penultimate ruler of France when it still had a monarchy. When he was 27, in 1829, he produced his first play, which was called Henry III and His Court, and followed up a year later with his second play, Christine. When the Revolution ousted Charles X and replaced him with the Duke of Orleans, Dumas participated, and although this revolution did not end up settling kind of the social and political state of France, he was on the Duke of Orleans' side, and unfortunately riots did continue. So in the late 1830s, he wrote his first novel, La Comtesse de Salisbury, or The Countess of Salisbury, and successfully rewrote one of his plays as the novel Le Capitaine Paul, which was based on the life of John Paul Jones, the Scottish-American naval officer. By this point, freedom of the presses had been allowing for much better reception of novels and plays in France, and his career was only growing. He founded his own production studio, taking over the personal editing, direction, and editions to hundreds of stories produced between 1839 and on. He compiled an 8-volume collection of essays that celebrated crimes. He collected an 8-volume collection of essays that were called The Celebrated Crimes, and the topic were famous criminals of European history, with people like Caesar and Lucretia Borgia featured, which I'm pretty sure we have fate servants for Caesar and Lucretia Borgia.
I believe Borgia. I could be wrong.
They're on my list, I think. Or at least one of the Borgias is.
I think they're both.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't have Caesar without Lucretia and vice versa. But there are like 15 other famous Borgias, so it might have been another Borgia on the list. Borgia. But if it's one of those two, both of them have to be their fate. He collaborated with his own fencing master, Augustin Grissier, to write The Fencing Master, which was a novel in 1840. It detailed the events of the Decembrist Revolution in Russia and was actually banned by Tsar Nicholas I, and Dumas was prohibited from visiting the country until Tsar Nicholas died. Grissier would be mentioned again in The Count of Monte Cristo and in his own memoirs and a few of his other writings, as he respected him greatly. During his time writing, he depended heavily on collaborators and those labeled as assistants, one of whom was Auguste Maquet. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be until the 1900s that as a society and as historians understood what exactly this actually meant for Maquet and his contributions to Dumas's writing. For example, in 1843, Dumas used ideas and plots that would later be repeated in The Count of Monte Cristo when writing what's claimed as his short story Georges, but likely had a lot of its work done by Maquet. Maquet actually tried to take Dumas to court to get recognition and a higher rate of pay for his work in Dumas's writing, and while he did get a somewhat higher rate of pay, he didn't actually get the recognition he wanted, although he did continue working with Dumas because that was, that's his portfolio. I mean, this is how he's making money. Let's see. So Dumas was a pretty successful writer at this point, but despite the fact that his novels were very popular and translated into multiple languages, he was not particularly well off in a stable way. He had a number of mistresses, according to some sources, up to 40 at different points in his life, and spent lavishly. He also held huge parties in a country house that he owned outside of Paris that was called Chateau de Monte Cristo. Across all of his collected works, it said that in his lifetime, he published over 100,000 pages worth of writings, and far more have been published after his death. He drew heavily from his own experiences as well as the experiences of those around him. After the Duke of Orleans was ousted in the revolt and Napoleon Bonaparte was elected president, he was forced to flee to Brussels, and a couple years later he would move to Russia, where he spent 2 years there visiting cities all over the country and publishing travel books, something else he did a lot of. In 1861, he then traveled to Italy and for the next 3 years participated in the movement for Italian unification under the newly coronated King Victor Emmanuel II. There he found and befriended Giuseppe Garibaldi. Throughout his life, it's known that despite the fact that he had an aristocratic background and no small amount of personal success, he actually did have to deal with large amounts of racism and discrimination due to his ancestry. His short novel, Georges, is actually addresses some of those things, and he actually has a very famous quote about his own mixed race heritage. This quote has become famous from him, so I'm going to read it out verbatim. I'm going to ask everyone to understand that I am reading this out as a quote from him verbatim, right? My father was a mulatto, my grandfather was a Negro, and my great-grandfather a monkey. You see, sir, my family starts where yours ends. That's what he said to someone once who was insulting him for his race. Pretty impactful, especially for the time. And not something that most people would say now. But, I mean, it was 1800s. As towards his personal life, he was married to the actress Ida Ferrier, although he didn't have any children with her. He did have liaisons with many other women, according to accounts of his life. We think that he may have fathered 4 children on his mistresses. One being a dressmaker who eventually became a successful novelist and playwright in his own right, named Alexander Dumas fils, or Alexander Dumas' son. I assume that's what he published under, not his actual name. One of his more notable mistresses was Ada Isaacs Menken, an American actress at the peak of her success. And then, interestingly enough, alongside some other famous authors and members of Parisian society, like, and you're going to love this list of names, Victor Hugo, Charles Baudelaire, Gerard de Nerval, Eugene Delacroix, Honoré de Balzac, Jacques-Joseph Moreau, and Théophile Gautier. He was a member of the Club des Hachishins, the Club of the Hashish Eaters, which was a Parisian elite social group interested in the exploration of experiences with drugs, more specifically, primarily hashish, which had become popular along with opium in Paris and France in general, following the Armée d'Orient bringing back a ton of the shit to study after spending time in the Near East. Interestingly enough, this was not the only substance they consumed. They also used something called dawamesk, which is a paste made from cannabis, fat, honey, and pistachios. Good for them. Dumas did die, likely of heart attack, so natural causes, and was buried in his birthplace, where his death was overshadowed largely by the Franco-Prussian War. In addition, his writings had fallen out of favor in the popular zeitgeist during the final years of his life, as popularity in literary works had shifted away from what he was writing. Ironically, though, even up until 2002 and later 2008, researchers have continued to find unpublished works of Dumas and publish them. In 2004, The Gold Thieves was published, and in 2002, on the 200-year anniversary of his death, the French president honored the author and had his ashes reinterred at the mausoleum of the Pantheon alongside many other French luminaries, saying during the ceremony, "With you, we were D'Artagnan, Monte Cristo, or Balsamo, riding along the roads of France, touring battlefields, visiting palaces and castles. With you, we dream." During this reburial, the president acknowledged the racism extended towards him during his lifetime, claiming that the reinterment was one way of correcting that wrong, as he should have been enshrined alongside fellow great authors like Émile Zola and Victor Hugo. The president also noted while France had produced many great writers, Dumas was one of the most widely read authors they had produced, with his works having been translated into nearly 100 different languages at the time and inspiring over 200 motion pictures. His final novel was actually published in 2005. It was called The Night of Saint Hermine and was about the Battle of Trafalgar. More than half completed, Claude Chop, a scholar of Dumas, found the book in archives, accumulated all of Dumas's notes on the unfinished portions of it, edited and completed the finished portions, and then wrote the last 2.5 chapters based on the author's notes and had it published, and then later found more stuff about possible sequels, publishing those in a sequel book called Le Salut de l'Empire.
Man has a Tolkien-like backlog going here.
Well, to be fair, we did get new... What was it? Who was it? We got new composition from Mozart. We got new Mozart drop this year, too.
That's right.
Yeah. Alexander Dumas wrote across multiple genres of books covering Christian history, adventure, fantasy, romance, and other assorted genres. He has several notable series, like Monte Cristo, the ones on Louis XV, the D'Artagnan romances, the Valois romances, the Marie Antoinette romances, the Saint Hermine trilogy, and his stories about Robin Hood. He's written over a dozen plays, many of which have become critically acclaimed, as well as being a prolific non-fiction travel writer. His Chateau de Monte Cristo is currently preserved by the Société des Amis d'Alexander Dumas, or the Society of the Friends of Alexander Dumas, which is currently captained, I believe, by the man who published his final novel after completing the last 2.5 chapters, using his author's notes. So, arguably, any knowledge we have of Alexander Dumas can only make the story of one of his most famous characters, Edmond Dantes, more interesting. Edmond Dantes is the titular character of the 1844 adventure novel, The Count of Monte Cristo, and one of the Byronic heroes that's written by Alexander Dumas. Count of Monte Cristo is one of the many aliases of the character Edmond Dantes within the book, other notable ones being Abbe Busane, Lord Whitmore, and Sinbad the Sailor. This was originally published as part of a serial, as we discussed before, so it comprises of several different chunks of story which could be read individually, although the whole book itself is extremely long. It is openly available on Wikisource, translated into English from 2 different sources, so you can read this free of charge. It's separated into 5 volumes, so you can read a smaller volume. So this is accessible so long as you have internet access, and I would be willing to bet that almost every single library in the world would have a copy of it.
I mean, ain't that the beauty of all these fate servants we do, is anytime it's from a literary work, it's in the public domain,
Open
unless
source.
you're like half of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, well, Sherlock Holmes is open source.
Most of it. There's some that is under legal
The
contention.
new stuff, like other authors writing Sherlock Holmes, but that's not Sherlock.
Actually, no, until very recently, I'm pretty sure Hound of the Baskervilles, actually.
All of Sherlock Holmes is currently, all the stuff written by Arthur Conan Doyle is in the open source, I'm pretty sure.
There's some weird shit going on that goes on with his estate. Trust me, I do know that.
Anyways, so The Count of Monte Cristo is over 1,000 pages long altogether. It's also important that when we consider the book, we do not erase the contributions of Auguste Maquet, who likely did a lot of the work on these books, if not in contribution of ideas, at least in the editing, in collaboration with Dantes, even though he is not credited with that. The stories of Edmond Dantes takes place in France, Italy, and the Mediterranean islands during the period of 1815 to 1839, set to the backdrop of the Bourbon Restoration through the reign of Louis Philippe of France. Our titular character, Edmond Dantes, is a 19-year-old first mate of a merchant ship called Pharaon, who is set to marry his fiancée Mercedes, but is accused of treason, arrested, and imprisoned without trial on an island fortress off of Marseille. Over the course of his imprisonment, one of his fellow prisoners, Abbe Feria, deduces that his romantic rival, envious crewmate, and a double-dealing magistrate are responsible for his imprisonment. Dantes then escapes with the help of Abbe Feria, who dies in prison, and leaves to find the treasure left by Abbe Feria. With this treasure, he becomes wealthy, powerful, and introduces himself as the mysterious Count of Monte Cristo into Parisian high society in the 1830s to avenge himself. Now, the reasoning for his originally being detained and arrested, according to the book, is said that those accused him said that on the last voyage he made an unauthorized stop at Elba, where Napoleon Bonaparte is imprisoned, received a letter from the deposed emperor, and as a result of this, he is a suspected Bonapartist. So, Edmond hands the letter over, which was given to him in the name of Captain Leclerc, who was the father of Villefort, the magistrate, but Villefort, seeing his father's name on it, throws it into the fire, so we don't learn what was in the letter. When Edmond returns to Marseille, eventually, he learns that Mercedes married his jealous rival 8 months after he was supposedly executed for treason, and his father died of hunger while he was imprisoned after trying to get him out. One of his old neighbors is still alive, and he visits him disguised to learn about what happened to those close to him. He learns that those who betrayed him suffered from shockingly good luck, while those who stuck beside him suffered from shockingly terrible luck in the interim. Upon finding out that the only person who remained loyal to him was Morel, he creates a series of disguises: the Englishman Lord Whitmore, a clerk from the banking firm Thompson and something, and Sinbad the Sailor to save him from bankruptcy and then later suicide, and then goes into hiding, re-emerging into Parisian society as the fabulous Count of Monte Cristo. He's introduced to other powerful men in Paris, notably his former envious crewmate Danglars, who is now a wealthy banker, Mondego, the Count of Morcerf, who is a military hero and now married to Mercedes, and de Villefort, who is now the Procureur du Roi, which is the king's prosecutor. It's one of the highest positions you can have. He vows to take revenge upon all those who had betrayed him, exposing the crimes of Villefort and Mondego, which brings the police down upon them, and eventually Villefort goes insane and Mondego commits suicide, and then he arranges for the Italian bandit Luigi Vampa to capture Danglars and take away from him all his money, and then at the end of the novel departs with his new ward Haydée, who was previously enslaved by Mondego, who is now his lover, and the novel leaves off with the words "to wait and hope." Now, my description of the Count of Monte Cristo story has been purposely vague, focusing only on the very bare bones of Edmond Dantes' story and his goals. I don't want to go more in depth into this because I myself have not finished the Count of Monte Cristo, and I don't want to spoil it for others, but I also don't want to spoil it entirely for myself, right? So I'm leaving myself some stuff to kind of find. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where, like, classic novels, a lot of the time you know what happens, but you can still read them and enjoy them because you don't know, like, all the intricate details. Which made sense to me. I have, however, read several of his other works, including The Three Musketeers. I've seen multiple adaptations on film and TV, and I think that it is a worthwhile read for anyone who's interested in classical French literature and literature in general. I highly recommend that anyone watching go read at least a chapter or two. You don't even have to read a full volume, but even in a chapter or two, you'd understand the writing style, the vibes of it. It's great. I cannot also accurately represent the sheer amount of adaptations of the Count of Monte Cristo from all over the world. Even on sites that list hundreds of versions, they are still notably incomplete and do not include every single produced version out there. Films have been made since literally 1908 to as recently as there being a French film produced in 2024. I also cannot accurately describe the sheer amount of languages these books have been translated into and the amount of different versions. Suffice to say, there are at least 3 different Japanese manga adaptations, and if that doesn't tell you something about the amount of adaptations all over the world, I don't know how better to describe it.
It's a really good story.
It's a really good story. You've put one of them in the hat, Gankutsuo, so the anime Gankutsuo is the Count of Monte Cristo. It's in our hat for us to watch, and that's just one anime version of it. Like, the sheer amount of adaptation. Hang on, let me... Just so you guys can see. If I go to the Count of Monte Cristo, and if my computer ever fucking loads this page, and I scroll down, right? So this just translations is its own, like, huge selection, right? And then you get into selected adaptation. Not even a full list of selected adaptations. So these are, like, the famous ones. Right here, I can see this one's in Hindi, right? This is Malayam, you know? This is the recent 2024 one. I actually saw this, I didn't go watch it, but I saw this premiering in French theaters when I was in France this summer. I almost went and watched it, except the last showing had started 10 minutes before we got out of our previous event. Then there's the television adaptations. There's Gankutsuo, 2004. That's not the only one. I did a Mexican telenovela, Sri Lankan Sinhala television series, South Korean adaptation with a gender bend, other appearances, sequel books, plays and musicals, audio adaptations, and this is not even an exhaustive list.
It's a very flexible story, too.
Yeah.
Because, like, so many different themes can be extracted from this one book.
So then, I guess the only other thing to touch on is Abbe Feria, right? The prisoner beside him is an Italian sort of sage and priest. Is actually based on a historical character who was also imprisoned.
Not to his death, though.
No, not to his death. But yeah, and the Abbe Feria that's imprisoned in the book has like a hidden hoard of treasure on an island, and he tells Dantes how to escape the prison and how to find his treasure, knowing that he will die in prison, and that is the money that enables Dantes to become the mysterious and wealthy Count of Monte Cristo.
So technically, Count of Monte Cristo, real life person fan fiction.
Exactly. Also, some people, there is some evidence that there's a decent chance that he based the Bonapartist imprisonment of Edmond Dantes on the story of his father leaving Napoleon's campaign in Egypt and then being imprisoned for 2 years in the Kingdom of Naples. Yeah. which is why I talked about his father.
Well, if we're ready to get into Fate stuff, you want to take a crack at Dumas's class? He's who we'll be covering first. So.
Saber.
Really? Any good reason for that? I'm curious.
Because I'm.
That's my foot. I'm actually directly on the floor next to my chair. You just extended.
Yeah, because I don't get. Fuck. I hate this. Just because that book is, like I said, I haven't read The Count of Monte Cristo, but I'm thinking of, like, the Three Musketeers. And, like, if any of the Three Musketeers were characters in Fate, I'd expect them to be, like, sabers or, like, maybe riders, but sabers would actually fit very well. So it just seems appropriate. Like, maybe he's a rider, but I'd guess saber.
So you're thinking Dumas saber because of the Three Musketeers?
Oh, wait, Dumas himself? No,
Yeah.
sorry. Dumas caster. Dantes saber or rider, but more likely
okay.
saber. Sorry, I got confused. I think Dumas is a caster because so far a lot of the authors we've had have been casters.
I was going to say, is there some anecdote about Dumas, like, killing a motherfucker
Technically,
with a sword?
remember, he did have a fencing instructor who he greatly respected, who he then wrote a critically acclaimed book on and mentioned in several of his other books, including his own memoirs.
You heard it here, folks, first, folks. Saber Dumas coming to FGO soon.
Saber Dumas could absolutely come to FGO. Like, like, genuinely, based on the historical evidence, we could get a Saber Dumas and it would make 100% sense.
All right. Well,
but sorry, does it make more sense if I say caster and then saber or rider for Dantes?
That makes a lot more sense.
Okay.
So, yes, you are correct. Our first servant
Caster.
here is Alexander Dumas Caster.
What's with his teeth?
He does not have an FGO page, so don't click on the next page. Because he is not an FGO. He is Strange Fake's false caster servant.
Oh.
And is in many ways a linchpin to one of the villain's plans due to his power set, which we'll get into a little bit later. His preferred role in this war is as an observer. He doesn't view himself as a hero in the slightest. He doesn't really care what the outcome of the war will be.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty taken with modern technology and customs, but to this day, even summoned as a servant, one thing that is absolutely retained, his love for women.
That makes so much sense. Question: if he doesn't have can I click into these images then?
Yeah.
Cool. I was like, if he doesn't have another page, I'm gonna look at all the images that are available.
Yeah, no, feel free. There's one of Dantes, but don't worry about it. It's not spoiling much.
Yeah. All right.
So, yes, he's absolutely taken with women to the point where he asks his master to go bring him like a $30,000 prostitute that he saw, and he doesn't want to buy her. He wants to try wining and dining her.
Oh, interesting. Originally, his prototype design didn't end up being used for him, largely. Okay.
So, I'd like to get more into his role in the Guerrilla War, but to do that, we really need to understand what his abilities are. So his abilities are called sublimation, which involves taking old legends and noble phantasms and rewriting or modifying them to bring them into existence.
Mm-hmm.
This ability allowed him to outfit an entire American police force working with the villain with noble phantasms. His master would dub the force Clan Calatine, named after Meb's Legion of Warriors in the Ulster Cycle.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like physical or mental abilities go, he's very intelligent, bringing much of his ability in writing to enhance his abilities. He actually has an innocent monster skill due to rumors of plagiarism and ghostwriting.
Maquette.
Yep.
Yeah.
This gets muy importante for his noble phantasms.
I see that. Well, first of all, era observation. That's pretty interesting because if you notice, a lot of the novels he wrote, like the really famous ones, and his plays, a lot of them are based on like historical events and in historical eras that either he lived through or read about, right? Some of his most famous plays are historical ones, right? And then the Three Musketeers and the Count of Monte Cristo are explicitly set in France, like in French history, essentially. So that's interesting, the era observation skill. And then Gourmand, right? So he wrote travel journals, right? Which included food reviews, right? That was the main bulk of his nonfiction writing. Was he wrote travel journals everywhere he went based on his own experiences, which then would make sense with his first noble phantasm, the Grand Dictionnaire de Cuisine.
Yeah. So
the Grand Dictionary of Cuisine.
The way this one works for Dumas is that he can actually modify items to be effectively noble phantasms, giving them stories of their own.
Mm-hmm.
This noble phantasm underpins his primary ability of sublimation. This is how he uses sublimation. The other noble phantasm is Musketeer's Masquerade.
Which, the Three Musketeers.
Yep. He can put his own life experiences or moments from his literary works and apply them to a target, increasing his target's physical and just abilities all around. Dumas's entire character is basically built around the anecdotes. Like, his entire ability set is built around the anecdotes of him not necessarily being an original story writer, having a lot of ghostwriters, having a lot of grabbing from a lot of inspiration from other sources. So yeah, that's Dumas right there. This is it for Dumas. Let me tell you, everything else here is.
So I pulled up the character designer at least because I was curious. So, Enkidu, Tristan, Ishtar, Ereshkigal, Amor, Ptolemy Old, and Space Ereshkigal. The only character I haven't seen is the new Ptolemy.
Yep.
Also, she's a character designer for one of the characters in Samurai Remnant, Zhou Yu.
Which one was Zhou Yu?
I can click into it.
No, I've seen it, so.
And, like, just a bunch of other character designs in different games and stuff. You know. Also redesigned Ptolemy and Eumenes for the anime adaptation of Lord Elmoy Case Files. Love that. Anyways. So I've got an image next?
Yeah, just an image I want to set us on. So this is technically...
Hang on, I'm just gonna... I can see the details better at... Okay. Alright. It was so blurry. Yeah.
So, right here, this is actually Dumas meeting Edmund Dantes.
Oh.
Fate is going to posit that the events of Monte Cristo did in fact happen in history.
Oh.
Fate will say that Edmund Dantes, after the events of the book, came across Alexander Dumas and shared his story with him.
And that's how Dumas
would
wrote
be
the book.
so enamored with Dantes' story that he would tell it knowing it would be seen as fiction, and the tale would go on forever.
Mm-hmm.
By doing this, Dantes was made a hero when he otherwise would have died in obscurity, as an obscure urban legend amongst the high class.
Yep, that would make sense.
So, he told his story, save for elements that took place within the 9-year time skip, where after the prison.
So the way that the story kind of goes is he escapes, he helps his friend Morel, and then goes into sort of like sequestering himself for like 9 years, buys an island, and then wins an introduction into Paris high society by creating a situation where he like fake saved the son of the military hero who was married to Mercedes, who then introduces him into society. But there is like a good like 9-year time gap in there.
Yeah, so Fate actually fills in some of those years and explains why Dumas never actually published that part in particular. So we're going to move on here. We're not actually going to Dantes. We're going to Abefaria first.
Okay. A caster?
Oh, not a servant. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
Not as far as we know yet.
Okay. I was so confused.
So we're doing Faria first because I'm crazy. You will see Dantes on this page if you scroll down, but don't worry. It's a sketch design that is his state before he becomes the Count. Mm-hmm. It's hardly revealing much about his design, if I'm being honest here, other than the fact that he's not gender bent.
Yeah.
But Abefaria becomes one of the most important characters for Fate's version of what happened mid-time jump. Faria was a member of the church. This is accurate to both his depiction in his story as well as in real life. But Faria would end up in prison within Chateau d'If under accusations of having been a rebel plotting Italian unity.
Yep. And remember, Dumas goes on to participate with Garibaldi in Italian unity for 2 years after he spends like half a decade, a little bit more, in Russia. Mm-hmm. After spending time in Brussels, after getting kicked out of France because the Duke of Orleans, the citizen king, is deposed.
So, while Faria was kind of involved in Italian unity in reality, not in in like Fate. Fate. Within Fate, it was mostly a ploy. Like, that was a sham reason to get him imprisoned. Mm-hmm. The reason Faria got imprisoned is because he got too close to a powerful figure finding out the truth about a powerful figure within the church, manipulating the organization for his own gains.
And who was this powerful figure within the church manipulating the organization to his own gains?
We'll get to that.
Damn.
For getting too close, he was sentenced by a trio calling themselves the Three Wise Men and was cursed to silence about the truth
three
of
wise men.
the matter. The three wise men included the cardinal at the time, a man named Angelo Braga, and a man whose name Faria could not say. He would spend the rest of his life in prison until he met the young Dantes. The events play out mostly like they do in the novel, becoming somewhat of a surrogate father to Dantes and teaching him all he knows. Here, though, that includes details about magecraft and the Holy Church. He would come to tell Dantes of the circumstances of his imprisonment, but he could not speak beyond identifying how he was wronged.
Mm-hmm.
The true nature of the ordeal would be lost with him for a time. Dantes, upon escaping, would make one of his first orders of business not his own revenge, but rather to carry out the revenge against the three members of the church that had wronged his father figure and mentor. Mm-hmm. This episode in his life would be released as a drama CD called FGO Heroic Spirits Lore Strange Tales, Edmund Dantes, the King of the Cavern. Jesus Christ, what's wrong with that name?
Actually, according to this page, it's called King of the Cavern, Edmund Dantes, not Edmund Dantes, King of the Cavern.
Go fuck yourself. The story provides the foundation of Dantes and FGO. We will get into that in more detail because it's very important, but first, let's go ahead and see the design for Edmond Dantes finally.
Was I right about class? Saber a writer?
No.
Okay.
Dantes is an Avenger servant, actually.
You know what? It makes sense, but I always forget about Pretender, Avenger, and Alter when I'm calling
Alter ego.
Yeah, Alter ego. I always forget about those three. So, like, you should never count on me to remember any... Sometimes I even forget ruler, for God's sakes. So, like, you see where I was coming from, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I was... Oh, I've got a page here.
Yep.
This is an old servant, right?
Year 1, yeah. He's actually the first Avenger introduced into FGO.
Interesting. Oh, I like that. That looks pretty cool.
Summer outfit.
That looks very light and breezy. I like how he's kind of facing you from the back. You don't really get to see that very often.
He has the one sprite from the front.
Yeah.
So this is FGO's first Avengers. For a reason I'll get into later, he is possibly speaking one of, if not the most important servants to Ritsuka Fujimaru, sharing a powerful connection.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. If I were to tier FGO servants by their importance to the main character, Dantes is maybe only one tier below MASH. We will come back to that, but put simply, the events of the story have led Dantes to being summoned at his most powerful in life, which is actually during the events of the King of the Cavern tale and not of his own story.
Mm-hmm.
His nature here is one wholly driven by a desire for revenge against his and Faria's enemies. Dantes isn't given a lot to ease this either. He really gets a couple notable soft spots at the start of the story.
Mm-hmm.
At the start of this King of the Cavern story, we find out that a mysterious woman named T.H.E, who would later go on to be his wife, is around earlier than she should be in life. Much earlier.
Yeah. Because he shouldn't meet her until the late 30s.
Yeah, the story does acknowledge this, and throughout the entire story, she is a ghostly presence that no one else besides Dantes can see. I have some speculation on her later, but it's never made wholly apparent what's going on, just that Dantes trusts her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The other soft spot is a young woman named Concetta, who Dantes took as a servant while she was a child. She assists him in his early years, coming to form a bit of an uncle and niece type relationship with him. He would train her to fight almost as well as he could, and would obtain her help in exchange for him helping her avenge her cousin's death.
Mm-hmm.
The two would eventually come to confront Angelo Braga, who would end up surviving a lethal dose of poison and nearly kill the Count if not for Concetta preparing explosives within their own home as a Hail Mary. This would take care of Braga, leaving the other two wise men for them to find.
Mm-hmm.
The Cardinal was easy, but took time to prepare a means to reach him safely.
Of course.
The identity of the last one was obscured from them, though as they hunted using many informants and family they hunted for him using as many informants and family connections as they could find. That is until a string of serial killings started taking place. Their informants and family connections began to turn up murdered, and their organs used to spell out the name of the man they were looking for, who was evidently trying to find them as well. His name...
And who was this?
The name that was given to them was Tarantella. A little bit of a
Okay.
weird name.
Tarantella, that's a... I've heard that word before.
It sounds like tarantula, but I don't think that's what you've heard it for.
No, I know what I've heard it from, but hold on. Yeah, okay. So the Tarantella, it's an Italian word. It's the name of a folk dance. But what I know it for, so I knew that, right? But there's a spell in Harry Potter, Tarantellegro or something, that makes your legs move uncontrollably.
I promise this has nothing to do with that.
I'm just saying, like the name is familiar, and you know. Anyways.
So Tarantella is an executor of the church, not unlike Kirei or Tsukihime CL.
Okay.
But his methods were notably monstrous. It was him who Faria could not speak about. During the confrontation between the Count and Tarantella, it became apparent what the truth that was being covered up was. Tarantella was the secret. Tarantella was not in fact human, but an immortal monster. One who could defeat the Count, easily defeated the Count, and began to desperately try to question and search the Count for a treasure that was hidden in the Monte Cristo hoard.
The hoard that was given to him by Abbe Faria.
Something the Count refused to give up the location even as he lay there defeated. Tarantella would decide that he would hurt the Count in ways other than physical pain or death to get the answer, leaving the Count hurt and slowed down left behind to collect himself.
Mm-hmm.
Tarantella goes straight to the Count's lodgings and engage Concetta in combat, making quick work of her. The Count would arrive, and it would become quite apparent what type of monster Tarantella was. He was a vampire, 2 white fangs sunk into Concetta's lifeless body.
Okay.
He wasn't just any vampire, though. He was Michael Roa Valdemajan. I don't have that last one pronounced correctly. A name you probably don't remember, but you've seen at this point.
Okay.
Roa is Tsukihime's primary antagonist. The villain that they fought at the end of, if you remember, that anime that we all collectively fever dreamed.
Yes. You mean the one that I created in my head, much like Hamefura Season 2?
Yes.
Except this one we all got to watch on widescreen, because that's the thing. You just plug a USB cord into like the side of my head right here, and then put it into the TV, and it just projects.
Exactly. We should try it for Hamefura's other Season 2.
Exactly.
This is Roa's Fate variant. Dantes would decide to pull out the secret treasure of Monte Cristo that Roa had been hunting the entire time. It was actually a holy weapon that were effectively the flames of hell itself, burning any that committed sin.
Ah, beautiful.
Dantes and Roa would end up having an anime as all hell battle, resulting in Dantes killing Fate's version of Roa. Dantes would burn out the flames during the battle, meaning he could never use them again within his own life. That doesn't tell you summoned as an Avenger.
I was going to say, but he's not in his life anymore.
Yep. And he's summoned as an antagonist in FGO's Part 1. The main antagonist, or he was summoned by the antagonist of FGO's Part 1. The main antagonist of Part 1 would attempt to attack the protagonist through their mind and burn at their sins using Dantes. First during an incident involving Shikiri Yogi, and later during a dream of Chateau d'If itself. Dantes would be defeated, but would form a genuine connection with Ritsuka, deciding to help them in the future.
Man, dems them flames of PTSD.
Ritsuka asked if they would meet again, and Dantes would leave Ritsuka with just the words, "Wait and hope."
The ending of the novel of the Count of Monte Cristo.
Dantes himself would play an important role during the final battle of Part 1, and would proceed to show up almost a bit too often after that, always at times of need. Something we will get back to later. Many find Dantes utterly confusing, though. He often speaks in practical riddles, metaphors, and ambiguous laughter, leaving only a few capable of accurately translating whatever the fuck he's trying to say.
I love that for him. We love a mysterious king.
So we have relationships here.
Yeah, we have a lot. Okay, so start with Amakusa Shiro Tokisada. That greed that saves the world is unquestionably the embodiment of human nature. This could be said to either Amakusa Shiro Tokisada or Jeanne d'Arc. They never change. I wonder if it's in... Because those are those both Avengers?
Rulers.
Rulers, okay. Jeanne d'Arc has an Avenger form, right?
Yeah.
That's why. My brain. Okay. Angra Mayu. Oh, there is another who has materialized as an Avenger. I despise human nature. He laughs at it. I see. People are inexplicable. Okay. His operas are nice. Salieri. Salieri deserves some love. Napoleon Bonaparte, a character who Dumas was we're Napoleon is on the schedule, right? And we've already covered like Marie Antoinette and like Louis the 18th, 67. One of the Louis.
The Sun.
Yeah. That still doesn't help me with the number. One of the Louis. And like there were the romances of Marie Antoinette were one of the series of books that he wrote, you know? Mm-hmm. So like technically we're meshing together. And as you can see, my grasp of literary history is much better than my grasp of French history. All right, so Bonaparte. Who is he? Ah, I see. Napoleon Bonaparte. So that emperor has finally manifested. I won't meet with him right now, but one of these days. Okay. There's an artist-type caster here. Very well. Waiter, bring him a coffee. To Anderson or Shakespeare. Okay. Queen, oh Marie Antoinette, you are the queen of vengeance. May your grudge and rage be blessed, and may your soul find peace. Well, I mean, he was a sort of a monarchist. At least as far as we're aware. He did support the Duke of Orleans. How nostalgic. It's been so long since the last time looking at someone's face made me feel dread, and now you're Chaldea's servant. Fate works in strange ways, Cagliostro. I will be here watching you squirm. And then Michelle Rowe is Michael
Rowe, last name.
Valdamjong?
Yeah.
That's not even that hard to say, Nick.
Well, fuck you.
You have a go at Dumas's actual last name. Just kind of catch images when I see them.
This is ending from Melty Blood.
Yeah.
So, abilities. Right. Dantes fights using the same abilities he fought Rowe with. The ability is tied to his noble phantasm, so I'll get into the nitty-gritty of that later. But it lets him create black flame-based attacks. Mm-hmm. He also has superhuman abilities, making him very powerful as a hand-to-hand fighter as well. Another thing is, he possesses the distinct ability to access mindscapes and cross through singularities, which is how he accomplishes some of his acts as Chaldea's guardian angel doing that shtick. Mm-hmm. In general, thanks to Avenger, he is remarkably well read compared to even many mages.
Okay, so I see personal skills, determination of steel was the path of revenge he walked after the Chateau d'Ilf. Golden rule, obviously, because of the hidden treasure. Wisdom of predicament, because of everything he learned from Abbe Faria. And then 3 noble phantasms. Monte Cristo mythology, Enfer Chateau d'Ilf, and Attendre Espérer. And Enfer Chateau d'Elf.
Enter Chateau d'If.
Yeah. Well, Enfer I don't think is enter, but it is Chateau d'Elf. Yeah. And Monte Cristo mythology, obviously. That's where that comes from.
So Monte Cristo mythology, that is the Black Flame. That is the manifestation of all the grudges in the area using magical energy. That's the holy weapon. Mm-hmm. It's passed on to Dantes by means of a magic crest and is considered to be an ability straight out of the Age of Gods. So it's strong.
The last time we saw the Age of Gods was blonde, blue outfit, loved her, justice goddess.
Estrella?
Thank you. I knew you'd get it if I said enough keywords because I couldn't remember her actual name.
Enter Chateau d'If. This is an effective time stop where Dantes can move at high enough speeds to effectively pull many attacks at once. It is a representation of mental strength Dantes obtained while being stuck within his prison. Mm-hmm. And do you want to pronounce French there? Where? The last noble phantasm.
Attendre espérer?
Yes, the literal translation is wait and hope.
Yeah.
It's the famous saying from the end of the book, and it is a noble phantasm itself. Dantes can fully restore someone, even on the verge of death near him, to a state not only functional, but also temporarily stronger than before.
Nice.
So I have a lot of videos here.
The only other person that this character designer did was Cleopatra, who notably I love.
This artist So it's not a lot in the Fate, but this is the artist that does the Danganronpa series. A lot of people will bring up Dantes looks a lot like a character from
It's
Danganronpa.
also inspired heavily by the Gankutsuo anime.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I saw that little Danganronpa thing. Yeah, interesting. All right. I'm going to close tabs as we go. All right. Just going to make sure that's not going to blast me. Has he had an animation update?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks too good for year one. Too fancy. Do we know if Dantes can be summoned in any other class besides Avenger?
No, we don't.
Okay. Alright. You know who I really want Fate to put? The Three Musketeers.
Wouldn't surprise me if they
And
did at some
D'Artagnan.
point.
Athos, Porthos, Aramis, and D'Artagnan. Is his update really recent or somewhat recent?
I don't. He might have gotten an update with the id chapter release.
Yeah. It doesn't look bad. It's just, you know.
It's not like brand new.
Yeah, there's not a ton happening, which is fine. Alright. Oh, so many Dantes. Overkill! Yeah, no shit.
So, he's also added into Melty Blood as a character at this point.
Oh. Do we need to be worried about?
No, not on this.
Okay.
Nothing in the video today we should have to worry about.
Okay. Oh, that pixelation. It's beautiful. Kill this fucking...
That's Roa.
I was gonna say, kill this Cullen ass looking... Looks like Edward Cullen after he unbuttons his shirt in the forest. Bella, this is the skin of a monster. Get him. Speaking of Melty Blood, don't you have that on Steam?
Yep.
Don't I now have access to that on Steam because you have that on Steam?
Go fuck around with it if you want.
I
want to say is the last servant in Melty Blood that you haven't seen yet. This is the final super.
So very similar to...
Yeah.
Okay. And then he was in... Yep.
Arcade.
I can see that. I got ice cream today.
Nice. Was it good?
Hit and a miss. I got the chocolate peanut butter one I liked, but I tried something new and then I didn't end up liking it, so it's been given away as tribute.
By the way, his voice actor is the same one as the male Ritsuka that does voice actor.
Interesting.
And Arash.
Interesting. That doesn't mean a whole ton to me, but I appreciate it. I appreciate the knowledge.
I can tell you something stupid about that knowledge in a second if you want.
Sure, I would love to hear something stupid about that knowledge in a second. Partially because I need a palate cleanser and I need to crack a new cold one before we tackle the next set of tabs I see. So why don't you tell me that funny fact while I...
So there is a Fate movie in which a shit ton of servants make cameo appearances, and they're pretty cool animation-wise. Mm-hmm. But not one of them has a voice line. It's an FGO movie.
Okay.
So...
Is it Camelot?
No, but it's led to a lot of criticism from the fans of why didn't they get all these cool voice lines they could have done, or why didn't they add even a single battle grunt for these characters?
Yeah.
And then you have Dantes in the movie, who also has no voice lines, but you know who was there in the voice booth?
Who?
Ritsuka Fujimaru, male's voice actor. Dantes' voice actor was in the booth, and he still didn't get a single voice line.
Oh, that's unfortunate. That's just sad. Alright, I see a list of names and tabs that make me worried.
We're actually going to go through these somewhat
Is
quickly.
this
We'll get there in a second.
Okay.
Leave it.
No, I thought it was. I thought it said Salisbury. Not. Yeah, and I was like, is it based on another one of his works?
No.
Okay.
So first off, we're just going to see, because we have designs for a lot of these characters
Okay.
that come out of the art book. So first, this is Conchetta from the story.
Oh yeah, his servant.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, look, I get to see other photos.
Only other real note I have on her here is that she has a living sister who doesn't make any notable appearances.
Cool design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next is the other executor that they kind of kill off immediately at the start of the story, Angelo Braga. What up? Do I need to get the guy bulg out? Is that what's going on here? So I'll make the quick note here that his fighting style is use of black keys that both Kiri and Seal use, combined with some really powerful gauntlets.
They didn't have to make it hot.
I regret to inform you, he has like 2 seconds of screen time.
Yeah, I figure. So next is T.H.E.
Yes. T.H.E is mysterious in the story.
Oh.
Dantes can see her and hear her.
Beautiful fucking design.
Yeah.
Well, and also T.H.E is the daughter of a Turkish pasha that's taken as a slave. So absolutely beautiful design. Like, this is stunning.
She actually has appeared in FGO at this point. But
she's so pretty.
Nobody besides Dantes can see or hear her within his King of the Cavern story.
Yeah.
There is some interesting notes, however. The first is that she is real at some point. She seems to always be in his head, even when they've yet to meet.
Oh! Shit.
Huh.
The person who did her is the same person who did Kamazots.
Man, this person's 2 for 2 on big NPC designs.
Yeah, well, they also did Alessandro de Cagliostro, Theodoric Alter, Le Comte de Monte Cristo. So, yeah.
We can't know exactly what's happening here, but we know her eyes can see fate, which indicates some sort of mystic eye may be involved. On top of that, Dantes calls to her in a moment of need for power.
Yeah.
This indicates that there also might be some connection between her and the treasure of Monte Cristo. That's just never elaborated on in either King of the Cavern or the original book. So we don't know. Maybe one day fate will tell us.
Maybe the treasure is a stolen treasure of a Turkish pasha.
Who knows?
Anyways, I accidentally clicked open Michael Rowe of Eldam on accident.
So
a second ago. So
this is the version of Roa that appears within the story itself.
Oh, that's why you have 3 of them open.
Yeah.
Okay. I was curious. I was going to say, did you fuck up?
Within Fate, Roa did not take the same path to becoming a vampire, and we'll look that over later. He is significantly decreased in powers in Fate worlds like all Dead Apostles, but still retains that reincarnation method. But at this point, I might as well go into the fully realized Roa. So,
at this point, I'm thinking it's just that specific character designer. They just have a really particular way of just designing attractive characters, like characters who are objectively attractive. You know what I mean? Like some artists are just incapable of not making their characters look attractive when they draw them, or they want to make them look attractive. Either way, it's upsetting and I hate it. So that's my next Michael Rowe of Eldam Jong?
This is the Roa from the original Tsukihime visual novel.
Okay.
You can go ahead and click into that now. This is classic Roa.
Yeah.
I won't be going into his exact circumstances here.
This is the Cullen-ass looking motherfucker?
Yeah, because it's pretty heavily tied to Tsukihime, but I do want to go over the basics. Roa was a member of the Holy Church that formed an organization of inquisitors for hunting demons called the Burial Agency. He was considered quite influential there, but eventually became obsessed with knowledge and decided to leave the church and join the Mages Association. Over time, he came to fear his own mortality and its limits on obtaining new knowledge, so he researched and developed a way to join the ranks of the Dead Apostle ancestors. Just becoming a Dead Apostle and working his way up the food chain was way too much work and was likely not to work. So instead, he decided to become a vampire directly through the true ancestor Archwade Brunstead by tricking her into drinking his blood during a moment of her weakness. He would quickly become less than popular amongst the Dead Apostle ancestors who scorned him, and he would even come to blows with their leader, ultimately coming out on top of the conflict. For his effort, he was disowned by the organization and left to be a functional, independent Dead Apostle ancestor, where he would amass a lot of power. until it became so bad that Archwade reluctantly joined forces with the church, including Roa's former agency. Archwade managed to kill Roa, which worked until it didn't, because Roa had accomplished a magecraft allowing him to continually reincarnate for around 700 years.
I saw a comment on reincarnation number 17 and 18.
Yep. With Archwade killing him every time. He would do this until one of his incarnations would end up being forcibly revived from the dead by the church, stripping her of his influence. She'd at first primarily be used for research purposes on how to deal with Roa, but would soon enough be used as a living weapon for hunting dead apostles by the burial agency. As for the Roa's spirit, it continued to join with the soul of a wealthy Japanese family's first son, setting the stage for the story of Tsukihime. I won't be spoiling the events of that story, so there are more than one way to go read that now. But Roa can meet many different ends, but most of the time, Roa is extinguished permanently one way or another.
Okay, there's another Roa?
I'm going to go into his abilities quickly here. It's notable that Roa does take on aspects of his natural host's personality often going after targets the host was hostile towards. The result is that Roa, as he was in life, may as well be dead. He's more concept and shared memories now than anything. His soul usually targets wealthy families that have some sort of connection to magecraft or the supernatural.
Yeah, that'd be the easiest.
His incarnations are wholly unaware of their vampiric alter ego until they begin approaching their adulthood, so around age 16. Then they would lose themselves until next thing they knew, they had fully become Roa and would usually end up causing mass death before they are put down. If they somehow can separate from Roa's soul, they'll be cured of vampirism, though this is remarkably difficult. He makes use of his own magecraft as well, which is primarily lightning-based. And then he has the abilities associated with dead apostles like increased strength and immortality. I'd also like to touch on Roa from the remake, as there are some slight differences, but I will take this time to politely ask future editor Sekhie to cut out our audience's eyelids for a moment before we switch tabs, as there is a spoiler-filled image immediately that also would get us nuked off the face of YouTube.
Oh, I thought that would work because I'm an idiot. Hold on.
No. You can, so long as they still have the mic, you can send them to the void right now if you want.
Okay.
Make that easy on yourself.
Bye.
So if you want to click into the next design. Oh, you don't have to. Okay, so it's the...
Is it the Alesia's body?
Yeah.
Can I see it?
Yeah, if you want to see it.
Okay. Should I?
Yeah. Okay, it was not the mobile version. The mobile version has both images appear side by side, which would be...
Maybe it just didn't load right for you because it shouldn't do that.
Oh, no, it's just the mobile iPhone site. On the actual desktop site, it doesn't do that. I'm sure it wouldn't do that on my tablet either.
No, but I was going to say, because that's not what happens when there are multiple images for me on Wikias on Samsung. They don't load side by side.
Could just be the way the site itself is set up.
Maybe for iPhone, yeah.
But this is Tsukihime Remake's Roa. Roa in the new timeline is much more focused on the study of people instead of just straight knowledge. And to both what I see on the wiki and from what I remember in the VN, it's never made explicit that he joined the Mages Association in this timeline, instead studying on his own. He also may be a full 1,500 years old as opposed to his original 700, but this could be an error in continuity. Otherwise, his story seems in its surface to be mostly the same.
I'm just
Yeah.
clicking through images over here. I've got abilities.
So abilities-wise, and unlike the original timeline, he's never confirmed to be the strongest of the Dead Apostle ancestors in the new timeline, as he never beats their current leader. In fact, he's considered maybe only to be 6th in ranking if he were ranked in the organization, or if he were ranked in that organization by the church. But really, only the church ranks him in threat. In an actual comparison of power, he's considered fairly weak. Most of his real threat comes from less raw power and more how silent he is and how deadly he becomes before a response can be made. The church usually doesn't find out he's awake until an entire town is converted into undead. He is also confirmed in Remake to have a reality marble called Overload, which allows his attack power to be increased exponentially. As well, he possesses a pair of mystic eyes which can perceive life itself. They act like the mystic eyes of death perception, which can be used to kill targets by cutting lines. But
I remember
unlike
those
them,
from Tsukihime, the manga.
Yep, but unlike them, he can't see the death of non-living things. Instead, he's just severing life.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have the animations from Melty Blood to show here.
Hang on.
Oh yeah, okay.
So it's Falls, who has also designed Darius III, Mozart, Salieri, and Amatsuka, who I've not seen. Also, Googlana. And Vimana. And the Gigantic Horror. And the Thames Troll. And a bunch of other stuff. Oh, well.
So, like Alco, we have an old versus new to save us a lot of time.
Okay.
Oh, that started us making a note.
Why did it do that? I love the quality increase.
The original versus the new one?
We went from Street Fighter to Assassin's Creed. I'm kidding. Mostly.
I mean, one was a fighting game made as a literal doujin, so
Yeah.
it's like it had a literal budget of 0.
Yeah.
The other one is a fighting game made by the studio after they became established and well known.
Yeah. Nice.
So, next, this is something I don't know that I thought I'd ever do, but I'm sure you didn't think I'd ever make you do.
Ritsuka Fujimaru.
Yeah.
I know what Ritsuka looks like. I'm not...
Yeah, nothing to spoil here. So...
In fact, I'm even gonna click through these fucking...
The Mystic Codes?
Yeah, because I deserve it. This is my treat. So far, I like the Harry Potter looking one the best. That one's pretty cool. 11 is pretty cool, and then 4 is pretty cool.
So, it might come as a surprise to do Ritsuka here, as you may have assumed that beyond Gudako's parody character, we were never going to cover a self-insert. And it is true that their character early on is written as a self-insert, but various events later in the story and multimedia entries have created a rounded picture of Ritsuka that may be lost on the player early on. The game, or early on in the game, or for players not paying attention later in the game.
Did you really just have to call me out there?
No, you're early on in the game. I don't expect you to have
I know,
any
but I
kind of
also
grasp
don't
on
pay
that.
attention to the games I play.
Well, there's that too, but I wasn't going to call you out like that first. I wasn't going to accuse you of something you hadn't done yet. And it can be lost subtly, because a lot of the characterization is going to come from dialogue choices and things that aren't necessarily spelled out directly in the game. But understanding what's going on with Ritsuka as a character is important to understanding what goes down with Dantes going forward. So to start us off, I'll just tell us a bit of backstory that Nasu himself wrote for Ritsuka. This is in quotes, by the way. When they were younger, Fujimaru had a next-door neighbor, an old man who was a veteran of World War II. Though everyone had left him after the war and had been living alone for 20 years since then. The old man held no resentment over what happened to him. They befriended the old man when they were in junior high school. They were upset to hear that at the end he was left behind with nothing in return. The old man corrected them when he heard this, telling them, "There were sad and painful things, but when I look back, they become trivial and insignificant. And it's not a lonely life either. After all, I'm talking to you." When the old man died a few days afterwards, Fujimaru did not cry for him, as they realized that life can be wonderful even if it's not rewarded. Fujimaru has very few other details on their backstory described explicitly. Here's what we do know.
Mm-hmm.
They had a mother, a potentially distant father,
Okay.
a little sister.
I like that you started with they had a mother, as if it was a possibility for you to say they had no mother, as in she just didn't exist. And he somehow came into being without two parents.
Look, I would not put Immaculate Conception past this franchise.
I also would not, actually. Forget it. Forget that I said that.
And then they also had a childhood friend. The details on the nature of their family life are slim, but it becomes clear that this family life serves as a mental weak spot for them.
Mm-hmm.
In a manga, it was established that Fujimaru was part of their school volleyball team, giving them some athletic ability. Perhaps most fascinatingly, their personal hero is established in the Babylonian anime to be Minamoto no Yoshitsune Ushiwaka Maru. The last event established for certain about their character prior to the events of the game is that they were recruited to Chaldea in high school during their sophomore year at around the age of 15 or 16.
God, they're so young.
The reason is never stated. While it's never fully elaborated on, I believe these details paint something of an unstated picture of the life of Fujimaru. Fujimaru is a character left behind alone with nothing to show for it. It's never stated, but there's a strong possibility that their family may have passed. It would certainly explain why they seemingly dropped out of high school and joined an international organization despite not being an adult nor an existing mage. The even more worrying note on Fujimaru's character is the relatability they show to Ushiwakamaru in the anime. Ushiwakamaru may have gained that dynamic with them for purposes of characterization for sure, but it's also important to remember that Ushi is famous for being betrayed by family and losing everything in that process, including her life.
We remember the Ushiwakamaru video. It was heartbreaking in some ways.
For reasons that we will get into later, there is a clear mental barrier between Fujimaru and their father, leading many fans, myself included, to speculate that their father may have done something to leave Ritsuka without a family. Maybe it was a disowning, but hints also show it could have been something much darker. Most things like this are never stated outright in the story, but it goes back to the bit about the World War II veteran. Mm-hmm. What that World War II veteran effectively told Ritsuka was not to dwell on the past, because once that pain becomes insignificant in your life, it makes way for new experiences. So with this, we come to see how Ritsuka is a character who above all else tries to move forward in the face of loss, something that lines up with what characterization is explicitly confirmed by the game.
Makes sense.
So, around the time of year 2 or 3 of FGO, there became a push to start fleshing Ritsuka's character out more. They still play coy on the backstory, but the events of FGO as they go on start to take its toll on Ritsuka. By the time the Babylonia anime takes place, it's clear that a particularly bad loss in London, resulting in the death of many servants, left actual trauma on Ritsuka. The events of the Solomon chapter see Ritsuka facing death a little bit closer to home. And it becomes clear that the death of Olga Marie at the start of the game was something of a shock to his soul. And the parting of many, many servants at the end of every singularity, or even their premature deaths, is something we know for sure haunts Ritsuka. Certain servants come to notice this, and in various events and interludes, attempt to create eternal paradises for Ritsuka to retire to and give up on saving the world. And in 1 or 2 interludes, it becomes clear that their own mind has become a danger to them, threatening to overwhelm them with the shadow of death hanging over them.
Knick-knack.
What?
Why are you turning this into a prompt for me to go read Hurt Comfort Ritsuka fanfiction with different servants? Because that's the vibe I'm getting right now, and I'm very tempted to open up a tab so I don't forget to go look that up later.
So it becomes evident that something is wrong as time goes on, but the end of FGO signaled a chance for the character to retire. But when Calde is attacked and most of its staff are slaughtered, Ritsuka is again faced with seemingly endless death, including the death of Da Vinci herself, which you'll remember from our Da Vinci video.
Yes.
It's around this time that staff begin to notice how susceptible Ritsuka is to being kidnapped in sleep or entering singularities in rest, something they did on even their first day at Chaldea. Ritsuka is a known habitual sleeper by this point in the game.
Aw, I also depression nap recently, Ritsuka. I get it.
I'm glad you made that connection.
I'm sorry, but like that's something I've been struggling with for like the last 2 months. Like, you know it. You've been on the rear end of me being like, it's 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I just woke up. And then I accidentally took a nap like 2 hours later. It's bad.
So, we've covered in the Da Vinci video the attempt that was made around the start of Part 2 by Caldea's system to attempt to shelter Ritsuka, and the pattern just keeps on going. Mm-hmm. I think most damaging of all is the events of Part 2 have Ritsuka committing universal... is the fact that... I tripped over my own words there.
Yep.
Most damaging to Ritsuka's psyche of all is that the events of Part 2 have basically forced Ritsuka to commit universal-scale genocide 7 times. And they're forced into effectively a multiversal war for control of the planet and continued existence.
Good lord.
And in the middle of that, Ritsuka is trapped within not 1, but 2 prisons of their own mind. First, via the Greek goddess Aphrodite's mental attacks that drive its target to total madness, and again with a magic item of Morgan Le Fay's.
Trauma.
Yep. These prisons paint a picture of someone dealing with issues of feeling inadequate, and even more concerning, there is some sense of self-blame underlying the mental state for what is happening around them. It's at the destruction of the final Lost Belt that Chaldea is confronted with a rather unfortunate truth. Their extra-class servants should not be summonable. Like, the ability for them to be summoned goes directly against the rules of the human order. Mm-hmm. The forbidden classes in question are Alter Ego, Avenger, Ruler, and Foreigner.
Awesome. The ones I always forget and don't care about. I literally forgot when I was mentioning the classes that I don't ever remember. Forgot to mention Foreigner.
So these classes are ones that would be forbidden by any normal human to summon, as they all serve purposes not meant for human use.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know them all, and not all of them are relevant, but of the 2 chapters we have so far, Avenger is the one we need to go over in detail. The Alter Ego chapter 1 simply established that Fujimaru has the capacity to create an alter ego of themselves, as their escapades during that chapter were revealed to be completed not by them, but by an alter ego that leaves at the end with no recollection of the events at all. But as for the Avenger chapter, it's time we check back in with Dantes and showed off the newest variant of Dantes.
Le Comte de Monte Cristo?
Yep.
The Count of Monte Cristo. But in French. Oh, good. Man, this is just peak emo boy. I love it. I love it. I don't think I've seen that many pieces of like leather and buckles since I walked into a Hot Topic in 2009. I love it. Loving the purple too. This looks great. Very megalomaniac. This is very new, right? Because it doesn't even have
this came out less than a year ago.
I was going to say, it doesn't have a little... the FGO, like Fools, the April Fools version, and that means it came out in the last 2 years, because the last 2 years we haven't gotten new April Fools. We've gotten the baseball and the strikers.
I don't even know if he's going to have either of those. He might be that new.
Interesting. Well, I'd expect that he'd have a strikers, because he came out long enough ago, but he might not.
Yeah, he'll have a strikers.
Yeah, but he might not have a baseball.
He won't have a baseball.
Yeah.
So this is a version of Dantes that's simultaneously stronger, being more determined to present his nature as an Avenger than normal, while also simultaneously being weaker as his existence is in danger. So what's going on? The answer is a huge spoiler for it. For anyone not wanting to be spoiled on this chapter, because it's extremely new, please tune out now. This is your only warning.
Aww,
Spoiler alert.
He's so cute.
So,
pure child.
The truth is Chaldea has been completely misusing Avengers. They fail to see the purpose of the class, and as a result, Avengers are slowly losing their existence in human order. Dantes is becoming rather paranoid of the coming ordeal calls, knowing for certain that the Avenger one would require Chaldea to come to terms with this fact. Put simply, Avengers are meant to be selfish and merciless, destroying that which commits harm. It's not meant to be a protector class that fights a crusade to save humanity like Chaldea itself does.
Mm-hmm.
For Chaldea to succeed, they must either allow the Avenger class to fade away permanently or change its very nature. Particularly, this comes down to the master of Avenger, Fujimaru. To Dantes, the decision is obvious. The Avenger class needs to go. But he knows Fujimaru would never let that happen. He knows this so well because I've neglected to mention this, but since the events of the Solomon chapter...
Which is the final chapter of part 1, right?
Yeah, if not as far back as the end of the Prison Tower event, Dantes has used his noble phantasm to exist within Fujimaru's shadow, protecting his mental plane from attacks by various enemies and bailing Fujimaru out whenever things get dangerous mentally. This includes Fujimaru's own mental demons that would also threaten to irreconcilably damage the Master. While Dantes is not the only servant that does this, he is the most involved one leading the defense force of Fujimaru's mind.
Oh my god, it's the Ritsuka Fujimaru Defense Squad. Apply for membership here.
Yep.
Sorry.
The position has become weakened, though, as one of the apostles of the foreign god, simply going by the name The Count, has gained access to Fujimaru's mind due to the chaos of the second attack on his mental state by the magic item from Morgan Le Fay, as well as a backdoor entryway created by Doman during the events of Heian Kyo, something the Omyoji would later be punished for by Sei Shonagon. All of this, though, made Dantes realize that the hour of reckoning regarding the Avenger class was coming near. So instead of letting the Count handle it, he adopted his purest Avenger form and got to work forcing the ordeal call himself. As it becomes clear that he would be making moves to disappear, he passes the role of protector onto Abigail Williams, and then goes about creating a singularity within Fujimaru's own mind, meant to force Fujimaru to the same conclusion about the fate of Avenger servants as himself.
Okay, so I've got some relationships here before
I've still got a lot more.
Oh, you paused.
No, I paused because I needed to take a minute to breathe.
You need to go get some water or something?
No.
Okay.
So, within this singularity, Dantes would recreate Fujimaru's family and friends, using their servants in their memory.
That's a little House of M, don't you think?
Very House of M. And the one acting as their father would be Dantes himself. The mother was acted by Da Vinci, the sister by Da Vinci Lily, and the childhood friend by Mash.
Oh.
Many other characters are portrayed by Avengers whose minds Dantes trapped within the singularity. It purposely starts out somewhat like an escapist magical girl show where they chase down a supernatural threat with friends. Fujimaru doesn't even at first realize what's going on. But as everything seems right, Dantes begins ripping at Fujimaru's life in front of them. Particularly, he murders Fujimaru's entire artificial family, and simply because she walked in at the wrong time, which risked ruining his plan, he murdered his childhood friend wearing Mash's face. This forced Fujimaru to live with his aunt for the remainder of the singularity, portrayed by Sekhie. I just added that note because I assumed you'd appreciate it.
Auntie Sekhie. Adorable.
By the way, there is a Sekhie in a sweater that we will be seeing at updates.
I'm so excited.
The event snapped something in Fujimaru, bringing him more in line with the mentality of an Avenger. They became obsessed with finding out who murdered their family and taking revenge. A far cry from their usual attempts to live for the future. Something they would be snapped out of by the end of the chapter after finally confronting Dantes directly.
Keep in mind, you have a tendency to really raise your voice when you start sentences.
Sorry.
Just because I'm watching it on the spikes over there. Because like every time you start a sentence, it starts, so you're like, there, I need to then you come back down.
So the two would fight, but ultimately Fujimaru would find a way for the Avenger class to not have to disappear without giving up who they were to become one trapped up in it. Fujimaru would find a way for the Avenger class to not have to disappear without having to give up who they, Fujimaru, were, without having to become effectively an Avenger. However, it still required that Avengers part ways with Chaldea. Fujimaru would end the chapter temporarily saying goodbye to almost every Avenger in Chaldea, at least the ones that were there under usual conditions, gag servants and the odd exception aside.
Okay.
As a final aside about the Count here, he exists in a state much closer to when he was getting his revenge on his own targets, as opposed to when he was getting the revenge in the name of Faria.
Okay.
In one instance, it is said that he even came to blows with one iteration of the Wild Hunt and won.
Okay. Now do I have relationships?
Yes, now you have relationships.
Okay. Just checking, just checking. Didn't want to get ahead of myself. All right. Mercedes, no, you said you were Florence Nightingale, right? What are you making a surprised face for? Damned saints, bonds are beyond our control. It's too late to say that. So that was to the two saints, of course, the rulers. Coffee, what are you talking about? Sheesh? That would be for the me manifested in Chaldea. No, it's fine. I'll brew some. To Anderson and Shakespeare. Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte. He has quite a curious way of being. Phantom, No, it doesn't matter. There's nothing to say anymore, for both of us. Isn't that right, Cagliostro? The Avenger class. The remains of their saint graphs. My body sooner or later will become like theirs, obviously addressed to Jeanne d'Arc Alter, Edmond Dantes, Gorgon, Hessian Lobo, Antonio Salieri, Tyra no Kagekyo, and Nitocris Alter. And then, Abigail, little girl, do you understand? There's not a lot on his skills here, I assume because he's so new.
Yeah, so the Count of Monte Cristo fights with dark tendrils from his noble phantasm, and unlike his younger self, uses a sword that was never mentioned in Dumas's work.
I do see that one of his personal skills has the same name as his NP from that's the Black Flame.
Yes.
Yeah, the King of the Cavern Monte Cristo mythology.
That is the noble phantasm. He's just become so proficient at it that it's not even classified as a noble phantasm in the game anymore.
Okay.
It's just simply a skill. He has two other NPs, though. Paradise Chateau d'If, O You Conquer the Brilliance Road, and Paradise Chateau d'If, O Stars Conquer the Brilliance Road. As it turns out, so the first one, the O You Conquer the Brilliance Road, as it turns out, the prison tower that Dantes once trapped Fujimaru in during the events of Part 1 is a noble phantasm he can create. He claims to not have it when summoned, but he still does, and it is what allows him to force his target to undergo ordeals testing their spirit for a total of 7 days. It slowly erodes and assimilates the target until they are no more. It is only usable if a powerful mage or Holy Grail backs Dantes up.
Okay.
The second one is Paradise Chateau d'If, O Stars Conquer the Brilliance Road. Dantes can use the previous NP in a more targeted way by trapping them within a prison made for himself. Here, the claws that he creates can seize the target, and here it's almost impossible to evade as Dantes combusts both himself and the target in the flames of his. This is likely a similar approach to the attack that defeated Roa with in real life. Sans trapping them in a mental prison part.
Okay. All right. So we've got an NP.
Yep.
So is this new enough that I need to be worried about copyright?
No, servants you don't have to worry about.
Okay. Is it just gameplay then?
It's just bosses.
Oh, okay. I didn't quite understand what the whole new thing was. That's some cool animations. Those look like spider legs upside down. Just commenting. It does. It looks like I'm standing outside. Whoever's recording this, whatever they're recording it on is having some trouble keeping up with the frame rate. Because I've noticed a couple lags already. Where it just, misses for a second. And I feel that. Desperately after my recent streaming attempts.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Skip ahead slightly. Love the fangs that have been added. Okay, so these are basically the same thing, just in his third ascension.
No, they're different animations.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. But it's just his animations again. We're just looking at the different form, the different animations.
Yeah.
Not a separate servant. I'm tripping balls over here. This feels like overkill, but I could be wrong. I'm kidding.
Like maybe maybe it's a little bit much for a random mook.
Yeah. Well, these mooks are kind of powerful. Ish. For a given value, That was nice. Dude, I don't think ghosts have blood. Nice animations, though. I'm gonna skip ahead.
Can you tell they're like one of the newest servants?
Yes, I very much can. Partially from the NP. It's more dynamic than a lot of the older ones, And this is almost exactly the same, because the one for the last one was just upgraded to this ascension. Yeah. Alright. I got a bad feeling. Okay, so they have a Grail League. Oh my goodness, it's adorable. I love it. Looks like the same artist as Iskandar. Somebody fact check me on that. Aw, look at the Widow Strikers. It's so cute. It's so cute. Alright, I got yelled at for not properly checking, oh goodness, for extra art on a recent video. So I will, in fact, check for extra art. Fake Grand Carnival. Yeah, that stuff. Okay. Oh, I now know all these people.
Yep.
Edmund Dantes, Emiya, and Amakusa. Don't think I know all those people.
No, you do not know all these people.
Well, there's Holmes. I don't know who else is there, though. This is the Chaldea Boys collection, like images, which I wish I could linger on, but there are times when I don't think I know all of them. Is that Fionn and Diarmuid?
Yep.
Okay. I was like, sometimes I know them all, but not always. I think that's just a CE, right? Yeah, that... Oh, no, it's a special illustration card. It's not a CE.
Looks like a CE.
It looks... yeah, it does, but it's not. It's Ritsuka. That's a lot of fish. I approve. I do love some fish. Oh, it was not. Normally it's one and then the translation is the next slide, so I have to be careful, but... I think that's both of the Counts and Ritsuka.
Yep.
Okay. Alright. That's the end of the extra art. Feet. And his shadow. Alright, now on to CEs. Let's see half of those pieces of art again. But they won't be the full versions, so it makes sense. Alright. Chateau d'Ilf. I keep adding an L in there. Chateau d'Ilf. Alright, so big prison on rocky thing in the ocean. Alright. A prison tower from which no one has escaped alive. Its true name is Chateau d'If. Synonymous with hell itself, the tower holds the most unforgivable of criminals. People say the torments of this world are gathered there. People say it constantly echoes with voices of anger, grief, and sadness. People say imprisonment there is the end and that there is no escape. And if anyone ever escaped this place alive, then they would be burdened with limitless resentment. They would likely be human and yet inhuman at the same time, doubtlessly having overcome their humanity only to be possessed by a dark demon. Yes, that's me all right. Someone cast into hell and devoured by it, who survived nonetheless. None but I have done so. I have gone beyond love and hate. Vengeance with these hands. I shall have my vengeance. Okay. Freshly brewed coffee. That looks delicious. Valentine's return gift from Edmund Dantes. Freshly brewed coffee with a bowl of sugar and a pot of milk to go along with it. I approve. Alright, Detective Edmond, Spring Equinox Travelogue. I think I know everyone here because it's Emiya, Amakusa, and him.
Yep.
So it's perfectly fine for me to... Yeah. Alright. Finally, there's a troubling case calling our names. The time is Japan's Taisho period, and the world is at peace. During his spring vacation, the great detective runs into a prudish officer with a scowl and a fledgling student who seems to always show up at crime scenes. The three of them together make the Three Stooges, the Three Amigos. Strange cases are sure to follow whenever they're together. I love that. With the little pipe and shit. And he's the detective, of course. Alright, Foreign Nation Infiltration Arc. This is the one where I don't know all of them. So I will skip it. Proof of Quickest. Oh, that's Medusa.
Yep.
To counter the opponent's moves, one must anticipate what comes next, but then the opponent tries to read even further ahead. Then I must predict the future the instant after even that. Faster, faster, faster than wind itself, so that I can prove that I am the fastest of all. Detective Edmond, True Mastermind Arc. I don't think I know everyone here, do I? I do. I know everyone there. Who did I not recognize? Oh, Jeanne d'Arc, Alter Santa Lily. And... That's Shiro? Amakusa Shiro Tokisada?
Yep.
I did not even recognize him for a second. I did not. I simply did not. All right. This may be a cliche line, but I'll still say it. You are the culprit. Alongside the great detective from overseas, Detective Dantes faces his greatest case yet. What is the identity of the true mastermind, the masked man, and why does the girl weep? Part 3 of the Dantes Files, The Masked Man. Thus concludes the series adventure. Will the story reach its grand conclusion? Alright. Detective Edmond embarking on a new chapter. Do I know the second servant there?
Click into it?
I tried to. It didn't let me.
No.
Okay. I will skip it. Detective Dantes' Resurrected Nightmare Arc. I do know everyone here.
Yep. There's like an entire series of series.
I know, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out...
there's full artworks at the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, we've seen them.
We saw these. Yeah, that's why I knew who they were. It seems to just be fate that I am surrounded by, mysteries in need of solving. Europe has recently been plagued with a series of phantom thief incidents. Alongside a pair of foreign special investigators disguised as security guards, the great detective Edmond is on the case. However, the culprit claiming to be the phantom of thief deftly slips through Detective Edmond's dragnet as if mocking him. The detective is reminded of an abhorrent sensation he once experienced in the Far East. The image of a man who should have disappeared at the bottom of the sea. Who could this phantom thief possibly be? Alright. Fate Grand Carnival, first season. There he is.
Woo-woo.
Do I know everyone here now? Yeah? Well... maybe?
No, you don't.
Okay, so that's the only person I don't recognize, though.
Yeah.
Everyone else I know. Alright. Detective Edmond. The final case. I don't know if I know everyone there.
I think those are the Vlads.
Are they?
The back one there is Vlad.
I do know everyone there. It's Christopher Columbus and Edmund Dantes and Amiko Sashiro, once again. This is also voiced. Oh, it's finally learned to turn down the voice.
おさらばです。
No! What the
Spoke too soon.
I really did.
おさらばです。名探偵さん。ふざけるな。地獄へ逃げるのならば、地獄へと赴くまで。幕を引くのは、俺の仕事だ。
乗りかかった船だ。俺も最後まで付き合うぜ。
Farewell, great detective, a great crime syndicate whose tendrils extend all across Europe. The detective travels far and wide in search of its leader, accompanied by a man claiming to be a completely ordinary merchant who only wants the bounty on the leader's head. When the supposed mastermind is finally found, he turns out to be a man they both knew well. As the detective stands on the cliff where the man disappeared, he mutters to himself, "This isn't over. I'll chase you round perdition's flames before I give you up. It's my job as detective to close this case once and for all. I've come this far, I'll stick with you until the very end, too. This will be his last case." Okay. Eternal vengeance. Is just describing him as the Avenger. Daily life at the beyond. He's right there in the back. See, that looks like Vlad.
That's not Vlad. I want to say it's Salieri.
Is it?
Yeah, because this is actually... So these are a bunch of the characters from id. You've met them all, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Taira no Kagekyo, Dantes, Jean d'Arc Alter, Salieri, Mash, and Fu.
Yep.
I didn't see Fu. Oh, there's Fu. Beside the female master. That is Taira no Kagekyo, though. Who I love. I hate having to translate. A road I once saw, one of the scenes that is now hidden beyond memory, a place I want to return to, and the people I want to meet again. A unique photo opportunity that could have been the result of a combination of coincidences, good fortune, and what-ifs. This is dream photo data. A warm spring has finally arrived without any loss. You imagine it in a small way, the continuation of those days that should have existed within me, but I can never see again. Alright, Count of Monte Cristo. You were right, he does not actually have a Dream Striker. Which I'm surprised by if he's been out long enough.
He might not have been.
That's fair. Alright, we do have some extra... Actually, we have a fair amount of extra art. We've seen a couple of them already, but some of them look really cool, you know? We saw that. That's funny. Love that. Alright. These are... They're all facial expressions, I think. Because that's the only thing changing.
It's like one long scene where the facial expression changes.
Yeah, okay. All right, we do have 3 CEs. I'm surprised we even have 3 with how new he is. Oh, his coloring does kind of seem inspired by Haiti. They have the same like general color palette with the purples and pinks and blues.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw her on that page, but that's FGO's Haiti variation.
Yeah, I saw her on the page when we pulled her up. I hope. Oof.
Yeah, these are all less than a year old.
The third treasure that the man known as the Gankutsuo was once given to him by Father Faria. The first is knowledge, the second is treasure. A secret treasure hidden in a rock cave on Monte Cristo Island. An unholy relic sought by the eighth sacrament. According to the words left behind by Father Faria. I like how it's translated Abbe Faria into being Father Faria. Because Abbe does translate to... Yeah. It is one of the ultimate mystical works and is said to transform people into the Lord of Fire. It is also the internal organs of illusions that humans should not have. It is thought to be a type of unique magical steel, but its details are unknown. Come here, honey. Come say hello to the camera. Very dignified. My love. All right. Heroic Spirit Exhibition Attire. The Count of Monte Cristo. Ooh, I like that. That's really cool looking.
Just one of the anniversary ones. We don't even have a Valentine's room yet.
Chill, Chunk. Jesus, you're heavy. Christ on a goddamn cracker. Oh, this one's translated. On the ground, there's the glimmer of a feast, the unchanging bustle of those they used to be with. Both Avengers don't send words, only gazes. You who continue your path, you who are living now, O brilliance that, by the daybreak that ends the feast, will start walking once again. An applause, now from beyond, just an applause. And this one has the Count of Monte Cristo and Jeanne d'Arc altar. As well as, I think there's a bunch of stuff in the background. Yeah.
So yeah, that is Edmond Dantes and Dumas. A lot more Edmond Dantes than Dumas.
Yeah, really, a lot. I'm glad that I didn't need more than what I did on Dumas. Because it was mostly fatisms at a certain point.
One of the only videos where the vast bulk of it is coming from me.
Yeah. Which is always a nice break for me. Right, Peachy. Is it a nice break for Mummy?
There's like before this video, I was like lamenting, man, this is too much. This is one of those characters where we just stepped on like all the Type Moon landmines at once.
All the FGO landmines.
Yeah.
And then the Tsukihime ones.
Yep.
You just tap danced on the Nasuverse.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a hint for our next servant? While you think about that, I have greatly enjoyed Dumas and Dantes. I think this is a really interesting way to portray the character, and would highly recommend that y'all go read The Count of Monte Cristo, because honestly, this falls pretty much in line. I love it. Chill, Peachy baby, chill. Show everybody your gigantic belly, and then you can go.
I don't want to say I had that much of a hint for the next one, but I will say that the next one is surprisingly relevant to this one.
Oh. Yeah, that's fair. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye.